This is The Guide Gals, a modern, wedding-focused podcast by the experts at Here Comes the Guide. I'm Chelsea, a designer and inspired creative who's probably racked up over 12,000 hours on Pinterest, and the friend who's going to shoot it to you straight.
And I'm Caroline, a social media manager who is obsessed with dogs as ring bearers and will inevitably cry over your wedding video. We've seen it from all sides. We've been brides, planners, bridesmaids, and have worked with standout brands throughout the industry.
Think of us as an extension of your wedding party and hang out with us as we share the ins, outs, ups, and downs of the road to ID.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Guide Gals podcast. I'm super excited about today's episode. I know, we say that a lot, but today we are diving into the top 10 most commonly asked wedding planning questions.
These are going to be non-surface level questions that we hear couples asking over and over. So if you listen to this episode and you're planning a wedding, odds are that you'll be asking at least one of these questions, okay? Even if you don't ask any of them, I'm sure, or we hope that you'll find them super helpful, and we hope to be giving you the answers that you guys need.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get into the non-surface level questions, we are going to talk about our surface level question of the day, which is always, what beverage are we drinking?
What do you have today, Caroline?
I just have another at-home coffee. Pretty similar to last week, but I think I switched it up to like a caramel pumpkin. I think last week was just like, I think last week I had pumpkin maple, and this week I'm doing caramel maple. Caramel pumpkin. Mostly because I ran out of the maple. But that's good. I'm working my way through the last of the fall flavors.
I love that. I have not had any pumpkin flavored coffee this year yet. And we film these episodes like trying to make sure that you guys can watch them any time of the year, any year, whatever. But at the time that we're filming this, it is just about Halloween. Like Halloween is in a couple days, and I have not indulged in a pumpkin coffee yet. And that is because I recently have cut out dairy altogether, and Starbucks let me know that they have dairy in their pumpkin flavor sauce or whatever. And so that was devastating. That was devastating to me. And then I never made the effort to go find a dairy-free version for myself. So
right. I have a dairy-free version. And then you can also make like one with coconut cream, I think, instead of like a heavy cream or like different things like that. But that takes effort. So like
it does take effort. Right. And I'm not sure that I'm willing to put that effort in. I have had, just to like everyone keep their pants on, like I have had pumpkin flavored things, just not my coffee. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm drinking today some just warm, I would say warm, not hot at this point in time, at home coffee. And then there's vanilla creamer in there. That's what we're working with. Yep.
No, it's a coffee day. I need it. I need it to go straight into my bloodstream right now.
Pumpkin in the bloodstream.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the first questions that we hear a lot, or that is like super commonly asked, is when to send out invitations. I know this part of it is really hard because the invitation suite or just sending out invitations in general, honestly, is not something we do as often anymore. And this one has to be sent out like months in advance. So truly the best time to send it, I would say, is like 8 to 12 weeks, or something like 2 to 3 months in advance, because that gives enough time for like, okay, I'm receiving this like invitation, I'm planning ahead. It gives them about a month to like really like nail down any details that they need to figure out, then send you back the RSVP. And you really do want to be receiving those RSVP cards back like a month ahead of time. Sending them out 3 months ahead of time gives people 2 months, or if you send it out 2 months ahead of time, it gives people a month to figure out their details before they need to RSVP, so that you have a month of time to send this back to your vendors so they know how many people are actually coming. There are so many logistics involved for your planning, for your vendors, and for your invitees. Like people who are coming to your wedding also have to figure out some logistics. So 8 to 12 weeks. And then we also want to note that like if you're having a destination wedding or some sort of special like event type of thing where like they're either going to be traveling outside of their general area or like need to make special accommodations, definitely try and stick more to the 12 weeks in advance. I think that gives everybody a little bit more time to think about, okay, I need to arrange my travel plans, and then also like if I need like childcare, do I need to adjust my like time off that I'm taking for work? Like if there are special details involved in your wedding, like let's say it's a wedding weekend, so there's more time involved in your festivities, they need to plan ahead for that too. So we would say 8 to 12 weeks, but with those special circumstances, stick more to 12 weeks.
Yeah, and that's a complicated one and a super common question. And I have a follow up to that. The second question for you guys is, when should our RSVP cards be due? Okay, so we would recommend your RSVP due date to be at least 3 to 4 weeks before your wedding. So I want you to think about this here, or like in this way. So you have a whole bunch of people that you're inviting to your wedding, and you have a whole bunch of different people, different personality types that you're inviting to your wedding, different levels of understanding, okay? Do you have one of those people who you sometimes invite to something that maybe has like a strict timeline, and you say, hey, the event starts at noon, so I really need you to be there by noon, but in reality, like the event starts at 12:30. Like you're telling them noon because you know that like they're not going to get there till 12:25 anyway. Like they're going to be running late. So I would go ahead and count on at least a very small percentage of your guest list kind of being like that. And keeping in mind that you probably are going to have to follow up with some people, chase them down. So I would personally lean to like 4 weeks before your wedding is when you should have those RSVPs due from your guests. So a lot of caterers require meal counts at least 30 days in advance. So that's one of those reasons why they need to get them in. So sending those final counts your way, which then will give you, like a final cost even, like your last payment towards your caterer. And if you're doing like a seating chart, you can go ahead and finalize that a lot easier.
Right.
And like place cards, if those need to be created, all of that stuff. So we also recommend keeping track of RSVPs and any meal preferences in a spreadsheet. If you're not using like some other type of system that'll kind of do it for you. So I think that some wedding websites out there have like functionalities for this where it'll help, like people can RSVP online. It'll help you like to keep track of those things for you. So if you have a different system, that's great. If you don't, a spreadsheet works really great. We love Google Sheets because it's free and it's pretty easy to use and it's really shareable. So that's a little bit of something that we talked about in our last episode is organizational tools, and Google Docs/Sheets, the Google Suite is something that we definitely recommend dipping into.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to another question that I feel like we do hear about a lot and we've also talked about a lot. So just to reiterate though, do we really need a wedding planner or coordinator? And this is a question that, again, we see a ton. And in fact, you can watch our episode or listen to it. It's episode 32 of the Guide Gals podcast, where we really talk about more of these details in depth. But I just want to give you the short version for today. But yeah, if you want to get more into the nitty gritty of that, go check out episode 32. But every wedding planner and coordinator does work very differently. So it's really important to think about like what role that you need somebody to fill for this. If you are somebody who is looking for more hands-on help, you might want more of a planner role. Or if you want someone to just like really help with the last minute logistics and take your mind off of things like a few weeks before the wedding, a coordinator might be a better fit for you. But all wedding planners and coordinators are going to help with all of those wedding day logistics. They will tell vendors where to go. Like they are the point person. They're on the phone managing questions with different people. They can help manage the timeline, make sure that everything is moving smoothly, that if like adjustments have to be made, they are going to notice it quickly and be able to pivot. Like they really are a person who is going to come in handy for so many different things. They can run and grab your lipstick that you forgot to put on right before you're going to walk down the aisle. They can have like safety pins on hand, or they can tell that annoying family member that they need to knock it off or they're going to get kicked out. Like these are the people who have your back solely, like during the whole day. And many wedding planners will also plan and design the event in its entirety. And that's so nice because then you can give them like your wants and desires and they will make that happen. If you do go more of a coordinator route, you will have to take on some of that planning details and making the vision come to life. So totally depending on your budget, what your wants are. I know probably if you're listening to this podcast, you might want to be someone who is more hands-on. And so a coordinator might work better for you. But if you're somebody who's like, no, like I care about this one detail and then everything else, whatever, maybe a planner is going to be better for you. So lots of different things to think about in that question. The short answer is yes, we think everybody should have some sort of coordinator, planner, or just somebody who's really advocating for you, the logistics and the timeline on the day. You will have a better experience because of it. But when you're deciding on coordinator versus planner, whatever, there are some other things to consider. So look through that episode that we have before to really help you weigh that decision. So short answer, yes, we think everyone should have one, but what you end up choosing might be a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, if you still have questions of any kind, as far as that goes, if you're really trying to figure out like where or how you want your budget, maybe you have a limited budget for something like that. So definitely listen to episode 32. We really break it down because if I didn't work within the wedding industry, I would have no idea like what the difference between a planner and a coordinator even is. Like,
Yeah.
geez, I don't know. And there is like some, like a little bit of overlap, I think, on those roles. Go listen to that episode. We break it all down.
Yes.
If you still have questions in that department. The next question that we hear a lot is, do we have to have favors? So I really think like big answer, like no. Like, is it more complicated than that? There's more to talk about? Totally. So I don't think like at this point in time, like maybe it used to be more of a thing. I'm not really sure, but I don't think that right now, like people go to weddings and expect a favor. Like I don't think they're like, oh my gosh, like I wonder what the favor is going to be. Like probably not. And like a lot of times, like, or at least a lot of the weddings that I've attended, if there is a favor, it's like a koozie or like a little bit of candy or like something like that, which I'm like, of course, happy to receive.
Yeah.
I'm happy to receive a koozie any day. But like, it's not something that I'm like super excited about, totally attached to. And I think that it's something that one, if your budget doesn't allow, like if you're looking for places to trim down your budget a little bit, this is a great place to do it. And then also if you're like, I don't know what I would even have for people, like maybe you don't like the idea of a koozie. They can be like a little cheesy sometimes, you know? You don't like that, or like you don't have any other ideas to replace it, then like forget about it. Who cares? You could even go ahead and take that budget and maybe allocate it like towards something like a late night snack, which is like kind of better than any favor, I think. Like a piece of pizza or something at the end of the night, I think is a lot more exciting than like, I don't know, like a bag of like personalized M&Ms. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, but I will say too, if you have something that you feel would be like a really cool favor, or you feel like you have a great idea or like something of the sort, like I think guests totally will appreciate it. Like I said, I love a koozie, but you know,
Yeah.
like it's not necessary unless you feel some sort of attachment to it. So
For
I'm
sure.
not a favor hater, but I will say like I have no personal attachment to them. So
No, for sure. I really think that's a good like deciding factor is like, do I feel strongly about this thing that I want to have as a favor? Like if you immediately have an idea, absolutely take it and run with it. But if you're like struggling to figure out what to give as your favor, just don't give one. Like
right.
I love seeing people incorporate their personal interests in favors. Like I've heard of people doing like, ooh, actually a coworker of ours, they did her favorite cookie, and they did his favorite hot sauce because they like got it like customized.
Oh, that's funny.
It was like little his and hers, and I was like noted that it was like this is her favorite cookie and this is his favorite hot sauce. Like do those things necessarily go together? No, but they like add a personal element to it, and I think that's really fun. I also like favors where it's like, oh, we have this artist who's here who's doing just little quick watercolor paintings of you and your outfit. That's so cool. I love that. There are tons of ways to do like favors and different details like this, but yeah, I'm not a hater. It's just like it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Unless you have a very specific vision in mind, then otherwise like save yourself the cost and save yourself the headache.
Right. Yeah. And like Caroline, of course, came in with like a few ideas that are just so much cooler than my koozie and candy examples.
Hey, food is never
so
a bad option.
you're
Any sort
right.
of snack.
But yeah, so like there are tons of really cool favor options that are out there. But yeah, we've already said what we need to say about favors. You get it. If you want one, have one, but not necessary.
All right. A question that we hear sometimes is, should we provide meals for wedding vendors? And this one I'm glad we put in here because I do feel strongly about this. The answer is
I knew you would, Caroline. I did the outline for this episode, everybody, and I like we assigned talking points throughout here, and there are two specific ones, the next two that I specifically gave to Caroline because I knew that she would have feelings about them. So
I do. I
You're
do have
welcome.
feelings about this. Yes. The thing is like you have hired them and trusted them to help execute part of your day. The least you can do is give them a meal. And they likely, most of your vendors are going to be there for hours, like putting in tons of work. And you may be able to be like, well, yeah, like They are hired to do that. They're paid to do that. Truly, the least you can do is give them a warm meal and a place to sit for a little bit. And then they're going to get right back up and keep going. Especially like your photographer, you have to feed them. They are on their feet for hours during that day. Photographers, videographers. Take it a step further though and ask if they have dietary restrictions. Make sure that the food that you're feeding them, they can actually eat. Make sure that if they're vegetarian, you have an option for them. Like, you're going to be making sure this is the case for like your guests. It's not too hard to do this step, honestly. And a lot of times you can like specify with your caterer, like, hey, I need this many vendor meals, and they may either plate them or serve them differently, separately. Like, there are options for that. And sometimes the vendor meals are slightly cheaper because they're not doing like a full like service for them, which I think that part is fine. Just as long as they have food to eat, I think is super important. It's also just like courteous to reach out to them and just let them know, like, hey, like, we're providing this many meals. Is this correct? Like, imagine having a team of them come in and like there's one person left out. Like, I think with the idea of a wedding being like this event and you're hosting all of their guests, it is not too hard to extend that to your vendors. And honestly, a lot of times if you extend that to them, they will be happier, healthier, they will do better work. Like, I don't know. I think it's a small detail that can go missed a lot of times. And I know when I've been a vendor, I'm always like hesitant. I'm like, am I getting fed at this? And that doesn't feel great. And when I am fed, I'm like, so I just feel better about the service that I'm providing because I'm not hangry. And like,
Yeah.
is that on me? Maybe. I don't know. But I do feel strongly about this. Like, there are lots of ways to do this. Now, there are certain vendors you may not necessarily need to provide meals for. Like, if the officiant is only showing up for the ceremony and then hitting the road, like, you don't have to. You can offer that to them if you want. Or like a floral team might be coming on in the morning and doing it, a lot of the setup and then leaving. You don't necessarily need to do it for that team unless there's somebody who's staying behind and like managing like some details with that. So I don't know, just go through your list, make sure you offer that to everybody who is going to be there. Make sure you have the appropriate amount, make sure you ask them about any dietary restrictions or needs. I don't know. It is a small hospitality thing that can go a really long way.
Yeah, and I think that like honestly it's expected. Like, you know, by people. Like, I think that you're going to like kind of put your photographer in like a little bit of a bad mood. I mean, think about when you're hangry. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Feed them for sure. Like, think about if you had to go a full 8 hours without eating anything. Okay, the next question that we hear a lot is, where should I get ready? So there are a few variables that we think you should consider when, you know, you're asking this question. So when and where is hair and makeup happening? So if you have a professional coming in to do your hair and makeup, you will have discussed like, where are we doing that? So that's something to consider. Is it somewhere that you can also put your dress on when you're doing that hair and makeup? So maybe they're coming to you to do that, or maybe you're going to a salon to do it. There's going to be kind of like a big difference in that. Another thing to consider is, how is the lighting? So remember, you're a hairstylist and your makeup artist. Your photographer, especially if they're capturing these moments, they're going to want ample natural light. So I wouldn't get I wouldn't get ready for your wedding like in a basement. Like, don't do that. Like, if there's anywhere with windows or whatever, natural light, or like, if you really don't have natural light, make sure that you bring in some like ring lights at the very least, like some lighting going on, so that stuff is well lit and, you know, can be captured or done properly. Another question that you should ask when it comes to this is, will you have transportation to your ceremony? Another thing to ask is, do you want to sit in your dress, or would you be rather be standing like on a trolley or something? Like, is your dress going to get like totally wrinkled by sitting like in a car, like in a vehicle on the way to like, there's a lot to think about here. Okay. So then if you choose to get ready at your ceremony space, the same questions do apply. So how is the lighting and the aesthetic of the room? Is there even a room to get ready in? And if so, is it big enough to hold everybody comfortably? So, you know, a lot of venues do have a specific getting ready space, like they like that's pretty common nowadays, but some don't. So if they do have that getting ready space, it's probably one that you can take advantage of, and especially for brides, like females or, you know, whoever, but they usually have a space that has, you know, mirrors and nice lighting, because they've thought these things through. Your venue, if they have a getting ready space, they've thought about what it's going to look like on camera.
Right.
And, they've had people take pictures there and get ready there in the past. So yeah, something worth checking out when you're picking your venue, because it can really put a lot of ease on you. But in our experience, if that's not an option, we typically suggest getting dressed at home, at a hotel, and because if you're getting like your makeup and hair done in a salon, most of them don't have like a proper space for you to get dressed, like in a small bathroom or like in the back room, like isn't going to be fun. Or I'm thinking about trying to put your wedding dress on in like a bathroom stall. Like, oh my God, no.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and then plus like this day is going to come with like some nerves. So like you want to stress yourself out like as little as possible and really set yourself up for like a getting ready situation that like just feels really good. Like if you are trying to get your makeup on like in a basement, like with not good lighting, like I would start to get anxiety about that. Like, is this gonna look really, really bad? Or like if you don't have room, like if you're sweating
Right.
in like some tiny room, like a broom closet, trying to get your dress on and like you can't reach the zipper, and like set yourself up for a scenario that will, one, photograph well, and that won't stress you out. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I kind of like opened up a can of worms in a way that like there's just a whole bunch of other questions that I'm asking in regards to that main question.
Right.
But hopefully that gives you a lot of things to consider that will
Yes.
help you reach the answer that you need.
Yeah, because truly too, like if you want to ask more questions of like, okay, I have 8 people in my bridal party, you need to have multiple bathrooms, you need to have multiple mirrors, you either need that to be provided or like brought with you. So not even just like your makeup, your setup, like are you bringing in vendors to do your makeup and hair, and like are there enough outlets, are there enough like, or are they doing like yours and everybody else's? Like there's just so many things that you can ask in regards to that. So yeah, you want to make sure that you think through all of those things, because I would hate to look back and be like, oh my gosh, ew, like this is chaotic. And you don't want the vibe to be chaotic at all before. You want it to like really set the tone for the rest of the day. Okay, I also love this question, and I'm guessing, yeah, you gave this to me on purpose.
It was strategic.
Yeah. And it's, when should you do family photos? Traditionally, I think, and understandably so, it's right after the ceremony. You tell all of your family members, hey, we're doing family photos right after the ceremony, and you need to stay there until like we release you. And if those family members forget or like sneak off to cocktail hour and miss the photo, it's on them. And doing family photos before the ceremony gets super tricky, because like what if they're running late and then those photos run late and then your ceremony runs late, or like you just don't want, again, you don't want the chaotic energy happening right before your ceremony. Like let that be the case right afterwards. Like the jitters are kind of out there already, things are moving, like you're already picture perfect and ready to just like snap all of those photos. Like I think it's nice to have all of those posed photos. I always call them I don't know, this is kind of stupid, but I always call them the Facebook photos, because it's like where everyone is just standing there smiling straight at the camera. It's some of the ones that like your family members, they're going to post those ones. Do all of those right after the ceremony. Get them done, get them quick. That's also partially a job for your photographer to be like, okay, we're doing grandparents. Okay, we're doing groom side. Okay, we're doing bride side. Okay, we're doing like whatever combination of people you are doing. They will also help move that along. And if you have, harkening back to my other question, if you have a coordinator, they can help like be a runner if you really want a runner to like go grab like this family member. Or you can just say like, so be it, they didn't listen to my communication, which that part is on you. Like communicate with them like, hey, stay after the ceremony. But if they don't listen to your communication, maybe that's just on them. They're not in the family photo and someone's gonna have to Photoshop them in later, and that's a later issue. But yeah, have that detailed list of photos ready for the photographer so they know like how they can get through them. Communicate with your family members, maybe have that point person, and yeah, as you're working through that list, like send them off. Like once that person's done with photos, there's no more for grandma to take. Let her go to cocktail hour and party her heart out. Yeah, that's what I think the formula should look like for family photos.
And Caroline would know. She's our resident photo expert. I am just like more so, I know what pretty photos look like, I think, at least to me. But logistically, yeah, Caroline's our girl. That's why I gave you that question.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, another question that we get a lot is, should we do a first look? So, yeah, I'll get into that. So, some people believe that a first look can like kind of take away from the big reveal of like the walking down the aisle, but other people really find it to be like a really like private and intimate time like on your day, which that's you're not really going to find much of that private and intimate
Mm-hmm.
on your wedding day. It's going to go by really fast. It's going to feel chaotic, and there's going to be so many different people in a positive way involved. But with the first look, you will have, like I said, that private time with your spouse, your now
Mm-hmm.
spouse, or almost spouse, I guess. So yeah, like it can be a really special moment that is very private for you. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's positives and negatives, but for brides who choose to have a back-to-back ceremony and reception, a first look can be really beneficial, like to your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So like you might be able to get some like really special photos, and like those are totally guaranteed because you know once your ceremony happens, your day kind of starts to get rolling, and like your photographer will certainly help you with making sure that they're getting all of those moments captured. But yeah, like it guarantees some like really special shots of just the two of you. And yeah, it's something to talk to your photographer about too if you have more questions, because they might recommend it. And I think that a lot of photographers probably are fans of it just for like that alone, because it's like it is
Mm-hmm.
like a really special and unique moment
Yeah.
that can be captured. But I guess when it comes down to it, it's another one of those things that's like totally up to you. So I
Yeah.
think that some people like don't really know what they think is best, and then some people have really strong feelings one way or the other. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, no, it is bad luck to like see the like for the bride and groom to see each other before the actual ceremony. And like if you feel that way, then like hey, that is fine. Or
Yeah.
like maybe you like really like feel attached to that moment where like the groom sees the bride coming down the aisle, and you really want that like to just be like such a special moment. There's a lot of weight on that moment, I
Yeah.
think. But like if you feel really attached to that, then like okay, yeah, maybe skip the first look, and you will be getting like lots of photos, couple photos
Yeah.
after your ceremony and all of that. So like you will be able to capture them. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess as far as intimate moments on your wedding day goes, it definitely cuts down on that, like not having a first look, but you can have like intimate moments with them for the rest of your life. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it really just comes down to like if you feel an attachment to one thing or the other. Those are kind of the positives and
Mm-hmm.
negatives, I suppose, or just the comparison of the two. But yeah, whatever you
Yeah.
feel in your heart is what you should do.
Right, for sure. And I think communicating whatever like that decision is, like the why behind it, can also be helpful for
Mm-hmm.
your videographer or photographer, like how they capture that moment. Like if you are dead set on having like your first look happen when you're walking down the aisle, I would make sure that people know like that's what I want captured.
Yeah.
I think yeah, because then if you're choosing to do that, like make sure that's captured well. Or if you're doing a first look with like your like soon to be spouse or also like your family members. Like I've seen people do first looks with like their brothers or their dad or whatever. Like I did one with my dad. I loved that. And then I
Yeah.
did some of my family photos beforehand, but then which mine was a special circumstance. There was 30 people at my wedding, but I specifically did want to have the walking down the aisle moment. And there's this picture that I love because of it is Luke like crying on the way, like when I'm walking down the aisle. And it's like very genuine for both of us. Like you can see me tearing up in one of the pictures, you can see him like wiping away tears. And it was just because this has been a moment that was built up in our heads and we were so excited to share that with each other. But yeah, there's also like a lot of logistics in your day as overall. So a first look earlier, we probably would have gotten that same reaction just in a different space. So I guess I'm just giving you what I did and then take that as you will. Okay, another question that we get is, should we close the bar throughout our celebration timeline? Honestly, yeah. There are some times where you can do this really strategically. So let's say like cocktail hour is coming to a close and people need to move on to reception timeline and like sit down. Closing the bar at that time frame is a natural way to move things along and also cuts down on distractions. If you leave the bar open during that time and like you're being announced and you're doing your entrances or whatever, that can be distracting to have people like get up and go over there. I personally at a wedding was seated by the bar and I was super distracted by all the people who were behind me, like getting in line at the bar and talking and stuff. And I totally get it. Like that was just like the layout, like how it had to be, but it was super distracting. And then you can like close that bar, obviously you can reopen it once dinner starts, or provide like different options that are like maybe you're pouring wine throughout like dinner and then you open up the bar a little bit later. Whatever you want to do, just review that with your vendors and just figure out like, are there times where we want to like shift the focus from one thing to another? Or like how can we like naturally help this move our timeline along? Great. Just talk to your vendors about that, like how that's going to work, how that's going to be announced. And then obviously too, like your bar is going to close at some point, and I do love when the DJ stops for a second and announces that bar is going to be closing so that everybody's on the same page. We love good communication. Those are some of the time frames that I would think about for the bar being open or being closed.
Okay, and then the last question that I have for this episode is, what do we do with our gifts and decor at the end of the night? So yeah, I think we get a lot of questions about this because it's like, oh my God, wait, like I just had my wedding, like do I have to like clean up? Like I thought I was gonna go, you know, straight to the honeymoon or like whatever. So you'll want to check with your venue's policy on this, like first of all, and you want to make sure that you know if they require you to have those gifts and decor items out of there by the end of the night or by a certain time, or if they allow you to store things and pick them up the following day. So yeah, that's a big question. But regardless of what that answer is, we really think that you should find someone that you really love and trust, and you should delegate that task to them. So that could be a bunch of different people. It's probably different for everybody. But yeah, like if it's at the end of the night, yeah, you know what? That makes things a little bit trickier, but make sure that you have, either way you should have this, but make sure that you have, like if you're taking things home, like you have your like big plastic bins ready, like stuff can be dumped into them. Make it really easy and as painless as possible for the people that are going to be helping you, because honestly, especially if it's at the end of the night, even if it's the next day, like they might be kind of hungover, you know, like make sure that it's really easy for them. Yeah, and that doesn't take much to make it really easy. But yeah, definitely find someone else to help you with that task. Figure out what that venue policy is. And a lot of times, like the venue staff are going to be helpful, especially to the people that are, you know, like not the bride and groom. Like they might not be as familiar with the venue at that point, or with like what's even happening, like as you and your spouse now are. Yeah, like I mean, like this is not their first rodeo. They've done it lots of times before, and I'm sure that they're happy to help facilitate to get that stuff out of there in like the quickest way possible. Yeah, it's something that you need to figure out for sure. You can't just say like, like we'll just figure it'll happen and whatever. Like no. Like you have to figure that out. Because yeah, you could potentially like even get fined for like leaving it there. I mean, I would fine you if I was like, we got to get all this stuff. Where do we put all this stuff? Like, I would definitely fine you for that. So yeah, I mean, that's all the questions that we have for you though. So that is going to be like our top 10, what we have found to be the most commonly asked questions. So like I said at the top of this episode, I'm sure that you have asked, or maybe you hadn't even thought of it yet, and you would be asking at least one of these questions that we have run through. And hopefully this has been super helpful to you in your planning process.
Yeah. There's a lot that we went over here. We also have another like Ask Us Anything episode, so you can check that one out to see if there are any questions in that episode that like might also be things that you are thinking about. And if there are any questions that we haven't covered that you are still like lingering on, reach out to us, let us know. We are happy to help with any of these. I love these types of episodes because like, yes, we cover a lot of these topics, honestly, in other episodes, but this is like a very succinct, like, here's a commonly asked question, here's the answer. So if there are any more of those questions that you are needing answers to, let us know. We are more than happy to help.
We are more than happy to help. And you can ask us those questions through the contact form on our website, which is theguidegirlspodcast.com. And on our website, of course, you can find our full episode library with any of those other episodes that we've mentioned throughout this episode, and just like lots of stuff. We basically have a year's worth of planning content on there for you. So we've covered all the topics on wedding planning. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. And on our website too, we have lots of free downloadable resources for you. So yeah, it is all there. You can also find more from us on Instagram. We post some behind the scenes stuff there, as well as like some resources for you as well. And we're on Instagram at the Guide Gals Podcast. We are on TikTok at the Guide Gals Pod, and you can find the video version of every episode of ours on the Here Comes the Guide YouTube channel. But yeah, that's all I've got for you today.
That's it. So Until next time, cheers.
Until next time, cheers.